All right, so in this video, we're just going to do a few examples of calculating distance using the distance formula. Also, I'm going to introduce you to a calculator that we're going to use a good bit this year, here and there, called the NumWorks calculator. So let's start with what is the distance between point A and point B? Well, here's point A and here's point B, and the distance between A and B can be represented by this segment right here. And so, but we don't necessarily need the segment, okay? What we really need are the coordinates of A, which is 3, 7, and the coordinates of B. And this is an X right here. This 3 is an X. We're going to call that X1. And this 7 is a Y value. We're going to call that Y1. This 6 is going to be X2, and this 2 is going to be Y2. Okay, so we have an XY coordinate here and an XY coordinate here. Okay. So if we were to go by the formula very rigidly, we would put x2, 6 right here. And so we'd have the distance is equal to the square root of parenthesis 6 minus x1. x1 is 3. 3. Then squared plus y2, which is 2, minus y1, which is 7, and then squared. Okay, and then what we would do is we could plug this into a calculator. But here's the problem. Plugging something like this into a calculator, if you don't do it just right, then you're going to mess, it's going to get some sort of syntax error and it's going to mess something up. And I know that that can be very frustrating. And I know also that that's one of the reasons why so many people use the Desmos calculator, because the Desmos calculator allows you to put it in looking like this, and then it'll just give you the answer. Here's the problem. As great as the Desmos calculator is, it will rob you of understanding what is happening here in the calculation. The better thing to do is to calculate using the order of operations. We should do the 6 minus 3 first and the 2 minus 7 first. Then we should do the squares. Then we should do the addition between them. And then lastly, we will do the square root. Okay? And I know what you're thinking, that, well, you know, I think the square root's supposed to be done first. Yeah, but everything under here is basically in a parentheses. So we got to get rid of all, we got to simplify everything under the radical and then do the square root. So here's what I recommend. I recommend that you leave the square root alone and do 6 minus 3. 6 minus 3 is 3, and we'll leave it in parentheses, 3 squared, plus. Then 2 minus 7 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared, okay? Now we'll do distance is equal to the square root of, well, what's 3 squared? Well, 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus, what's negative 5 squared? Now be careful here, because some people, if you key in just negative 5 squared in a calculator, it'll give you negative 25. Why? Because it's doing 5 squared first, and then it's putting the negative on it. What you have to do in a calculator is you have to do parenthesis negative 5, just like this, squared, which is now negative 5 times negative 5. Now that's a negative times a negative, which is a positive. And so we wind up with positive 25. So negative 5 squared is positive 25. And what we now have is 9 plus 25 is the square root of 34. This is the best way to do it if you're not strong in doing this in your head. If you're not strong in doing this in your head, you should do it just like I did it here. Now you can get a calculator and just identify the square root of 34. So now I'm going to introduce you to the NumWorks calculator. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go to, we're going to do a Google search of NumWorks. You can also just go to numworks.com if you want to. But if we do a search for NumWorks, we will get NumWorks, which is numworks.com. And when we click on this link to NumWorks, we get this here. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller here so you can see a little bit better. Let's see here. There we go. That's a little better. I think you can see the whole thing now. Almost. Okay, here we go. Now you can see the whole thing. All right, so this is the NumWorks website, and this calculator you're looking at in the picture is called the NumWorks calculator. I own one, and I really recommend it to everybody. I've used the TI-84, which is awesome, by the way. TI-84 is an amazing calculator. I prefer the NumWorks calculator over the TI-84, just for my own personal reasons. Let's see. Here's one of the reasons I really like it, is that when you go to the NumWorks website, you can click on this button that says Emulator, and bam, you can use the calculator right here on the internet without paying. The TI-84 will not allow you to do that. You have to pay for software. You have to update the software. You have to download like a special TI-84 package for the software. It's just a little frustrating. On any computer anywhere in the world, I can just go to numworks.com and I have access to the NumWorks calculator. And I'll show you in class that you can actually get the app on your phone. There's a NumWorks app on your phone, and it's just as easy to use. I'm going to hit full screen here so that we can see the screen a little bit easier, but this is the keypad over here. And this top left feature where you see the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and the equal sign calculation, that's what we want to use mostly. Don't worry about these other apps. These are all different apps in the NumWorks calculator. We just need this one. We're going to hit the EXE button or the OK button, and that's going to bring us into the calculator. And if you recall, what we were looking for here is the square root of 34. So let's go to the NumWorks calculator, and you'll see right here the button, the square root button, is right here. I'm hovering over it. That's the square root button, and we'll just key in 34. And the EXE button, that means like execute. That's the same thing as the equals button. We're going to hit that button, and it says that the square root of 34 is the same thing as 5.830951895. I'm going to go just to 5.83095. Let's do that. All right, so the square root of 34 is 5.83095. Now I usually ask my students to go to 3 decimal places right here, so you would just go to 5.830, or if you were rounding, the 9 would bring the 0 up to a 1, and you do 5.831. But I usually set my questions, online questions, so that you can be off by 0.001 and still be okay. And so that's it. So we just calculated the distance between points A and B. I think we should do another example, and I'll show you kind of a little faster way of doing it. All right, now let's calculate the distance between point C and point D. C is at 5,1, that's right here. D is at 810, that's right here. And we're going to use the distance formula right here. Now I'm going to do this one a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. I think you're going to like this method. We're going to do the distance is equal to the square root of, now watch this, basically all you have to do, because we're squaring the difference between the two x's, we're doing x2 minus x1, all you have to do is take the bigger of the two, which is 8, and subtract the smaller one. So 8 minus 5 is 3. So really we're just going to do 3 squared plus, then the difference between 10 and 1, well, 10 minus 1, that's 9. So we're going to do 9 squared. It really is that easy. And then the distance is going to be equal to the square root of, well, 3 squared is 9, plus 9 squared is 81, okay? So the distance between these two is going to be the square root. 9 plus 81 is 90. Do you see how I'm saving the square root until the very end? And there's a very good reason for that. We're saving the square root for the very end because people mess up the square roots all the time. And because calculators are notoriously different in how they apply the square root button. Some calculators do the square root with parentheses. Some of them do the square root without parentheses. And it can be very confusing for students. So when you get down to all you have is the square root of 90, now we can just go to the calculator and key in square root of 90. So let's go over to the NumWorks calculator and we'll key in, there's the square root button, 90. Square root of 90 is 9.48683. 9.48683. 9.46, what is that? 486, sorry about that. 48683. Okay, and I would probably put the answer in as 9.487 or 9.486 would probably be fine too. When you just cut off a number, the rest of the numbers, that's called truncating, and that's just fine in a lot of cases. Okay, let's do maybe one more example of this calculating distance. All right, so we're going to do the distance between E and F. This one's kind of a harder one. Here's E over here in quadrant 2, and F is all the way over here in quadrant 4. You know, we got a pretty big distance here. Yeah. Now, really, all we need is the vertical distance, which is from here to here. Okay. So we could just count from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 squared, and then from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 squared. That's 169. So it's the square root of 169 plus 81, because this is 9 squared. But let's do it the algebraic way. So distance is going to be equal to the square root of, well, what's the difference between -9 and 4? So we can just do we can either do -9 minus 4 or 4 minus -9. I'm going to do 4 minus -9. Well, 4 minus -9 is the same thing as 4 plus 9. That's 13. We're going to do 13 squared plus. Then we're going to do 3 minus -6. 3 minus -6 is 3 plus 6, which is 9 squared. And so we wind up with the square root of 13 squared. You may need a calculator for that. Well, we can do the NumWorks calculator. 13, here's the square button. I think this is it right here. Squared, execute, there we go, 169. Sure enough, just like I said. So 169 plus, and then 9 squared is 81. You may need a calculator for that. So the distance is the square root 169 plus 81. Well, here's 169 plus 81. See, it works just like a regular calculator. Is 250. And so it's the square root, whatever the square root of 250 is, that is the distance between E and F. So we're going to go here to the NumWorks calculator, and we're going to do, whoops, sorry about that. We're going to do the square root of 250, and we get 15.81138 or 39. I'm going to put 811, 15.811. 15.811. Okay, and there's our distance. And I hope this review of using the distance formula with points, I hope this really helps you. I think if you go back through this video a couple times, you'll really notice a technique that you're able to do that will allow you to be very fast and consistent in calculating the distances between 2 points.